Hi, my name is John McWise. I'm with NJ21st, and I wanted to talk about two major changes that are going on with New Jersey education being rolled out by the Department of Education in New Jersey. So, a few months ago, we became aware of changes to proficiency tests. Proficiency tests are meant to primarily help parents and stakeholders know how well schools are performing across several indicators, including English language arts, math, and science. This year, they're rolling out a field test for a form of testing, adaptive testing, that is very different than how kids were tested in the past. Different kids are going to get different questions, I think, based on their responses. The problem with that is it doesn't really help with comparability to prior years, and there are also questions as to whether or not these tests are actually going to measure against a standard. So when you do adaptive testing, it's more about, I think, and this is the question we want to figure out or answers to, massaging questions to a kid's ability versus a standard. And when you kind of divorce yourself from the standard, you start not really getting a clear picture as to whether schools are in fact teaching kids effectively. So two issues with that: comparison to prior years and comparison to standard. Those are concerns. The second big concern has to do with the reports, which are also going to change. And there are going to be changes to cut scores. You know, for example, what determines proficiency versus non-proficiency? What kids even get included to measure? For example, in chronic absenteeism, the number of days went from 45 to 90. I talked about weighting. And when you combine these two changes, it leads to really big questions as to whether or not parents are going to be able to determine if schools are improving, if they're stagnant, if they're declining. And we're also wondering whether it even complies with federal law, which demands that under ESSA, that the results be comparable. The story underneath this, which you probably know already, is that many schools have been sort of either declining or have declined since 2019 with minimal improvement or further decline or just remain stagnant. And the concern that we have with these tests and these reporting changes is whether or not that's all going to be masked, whitewashed. So the performance reports which the DOE puts out based on these proficiency measures are a way for boards of education, for parents, for students, for teachers to really track year to year how well students are doing in connection to how they're being taught in their schools. We're very concerned that this could erase that. We've emailed the New Jersey Department of Education. We've emailed the United States Department of Education. We've gotten no answers over the past 2 months. We've also emailed legislators, haven't heard back from them. So we finally decided to send an OPRA request this weekend. But these are questions that should be really simple to answer, especially when you're already rolling it out. These are things that should be out there already that shouldn't even have to be asked. So if you're a parent with kids in our public school system, please consider reaching out to the Department of Education and asking them about this. If you want to get more informed, you can go to our website, NJ21st, and go to our wiki. And I think it's this very second link in the first section that says adaptive testing. Click on that, and there's a whole host of information and articles covering this topic. Another resource for information is NJ Education Report. All right, thanks.